Okay, so today's session would be the starting of second chapter, which is protein structure and engineering. We know that ultimately the coding region of our DNA will be encoded as protein. So there are wide diversity of these proteins, and proteins, as we have studied in previous year, that they are made up of amino acids. And in nature, there are 20 different amino acids which occur in different combinations to form protein. A few examples would be the blood, which contains hemoglobin, which carries oxygen, is a protein. And you have collagen, which is also provides strength to our bone and extracellular tissue. Then you have protein present in the muscle cells called as myosin, which helps in the contraction of muscles. Next, um, what happens when there is a protein deficiency in human body, which leads to human diseases? Okay, so the abnormal structure of protein or deficiency of protein will lead to human disease like thalassemia, sickle cell anemia, SCID, and mad cow disease. Now let us see one by one what they are. Suppose in the hemoglobin, if it lacks alpha or beta subunit, so what happens is the oxygen carrying capacity will be deprived. And in such condition, when the hemoglobin lack either beta chain or an alpha chain, it leads to thalassemia, which is fatal. Then comes sickle cell anemia. You already know the structural difference between normal RBC and sickle cell RBC. They are in the sickled form. The structure varies because the sixth position of beta chain of hemoglobin had substituted with another amino acid. Like sixth position, you have glutamate or glutamic acid, which has been substituted by valine. Because of just one substitution of one amino acid leads to the change in the structural form of RBC. Then you have got SCID. SCID forms in the absence of an enzyme called as adenosine deaminase. Okay, and this is an immunocompromised condition, seen in newborns where it's still cannot last the infancy stage. Next is mad cow disease. Mad cow disease is seen in the cows where the normal protein present in the brain has changed the configuration and became a rogue protein. And these proteins are nothing but they are prions. So these proteins are called as prions, which changes the structure into a rogue protein and caused mad cow disease in the cows where they behave very abnormally. So hopefully you understood what happens when there is a deficiency of protein or the structural change in the protein. It changes the function of normal protein. Now let us move on to 3D shape of protein. So the morphology, function and activity of the cell depends upon the protein which is expressed. So three-dimensional structure of protein was studied initially by using X-ray crystallography, and these days, we use NMR technique, which is nuclear magnetic resonance, where you need not crystallize the proteins to be analyzed. Okay, so this second diagram, you can see the NMR machine, how it works. So let us not go too much into depth. It's just an introduction how the 3D shape of a protein was studied. The scientist who contributed in the study of the structure was Dr. Frederick Sanger. If you could remember, previous class we studied about the DNA sequencing of dideoxy chain termination method by Sanger. So he also contributed in the study of structure of protein by using a reagent called as fluorodinitrobenzene. Then the second scientist was Fair Edmund, which the method is called as Edmund's method, where he used phenyl isothiocyanate (PITC) for studying the structure of protein, and this we have studied in class 11th. The other scientists were Linus Pauling, G. N. Ramachandran, who gave Ramachandra a plot. Then you have Proteus, and then John Kendrew. These are the few scientists who studied the 3D structure of protein by using high resolution X ray. Okay. Now let us see what are the different types of 3D structure. Again, I think we will be revising whatever we studied in class 11th. But anyhow, we need to complete this topic. So the 3D structure, when we talk about it, comprises of primary structure, secondary structure, tertiary structure, and quaternary structure. The primary structure is basically, um, many unit of amino acids. They are joined with one another by peptide bond by the removal of one molecule of water. So as you all know, the structure of amino acid, the one end is amino terminal NH3 and NH2 after sharing, and then the other terminal is carboxylic terminal COOH. So now what happens is, if one amino acid linked by another amino acid with a peptide bond, the water molecules are removed, hence it forms a polypeptide bond. So basically they are linear in structure. So this is what about the primary structure of protein, as you can see in the image, the first image. Okay. Now the secondary structure. If the primary structure undergoes a folding or a twist and turn, they are called as secondary structure. So they form the structure of helix and sheet. Or examples would be alpha helix and beta pleated sheet. So alpha helix, this right-handed alpha helix are very common in nature, and left-handed alpha helix are very rare in nature, and they are bounded with the disulfide bond. And the examples where you can find this alpha helix are keratin, your hair keratin, your skin, your the wool and the feather, even the nail. So these are the example of keratin, and keratin is alpha helix. Next type of secondary structure is beta pleated sheet. So beta pleated sheet, they are a sheet which are arranged anti-parallel to each other with a polypeptide bond. Example would be skin or silk. Silk, it's not skin, it's silk. Then third one is tertiary structure. Tertiary structure is more compact form of secondary structure. When the secondary structure are still compact and they form a globular or spherical form with the help of different types of bonds like hydrogen disulfide, ionic and hydrophobic bond, they form tertiary structure. Example is the protein present in muscles like myoglobin. Then the last type of structure is quaternary structure. They are associated with, or they are combination of two or more independent proteins or polypeptide which are bound by non-covalent force. Example is hemoglobin. So here we can see the animated form of the structure. The first one is a linear form made up of many units of amino acids. So primary structure. Then this primary structure undergoes twist and turn in this slide, the second diagram, which forms a secondary structure, and the same secondary structure still forms a compact form to evolve into a tertiary structure. Then in a quaternary structure, as you can see, there are four different types of polypeptide chain proteins: yellow, blue, pink, and what is it, light blue, and yellow, green. Yeah. So these are the four different proteins which combine with the covalent bond to form hemoglobin. Okay, so if you see amino acids, they're broadly divided into three, like polar or hydrophobic in nature. They mixes with water. Then the second one is charged, like aspartate and arginine. Then you have a hydrophobic, which do not mix with water, and they are tryptophan and valine. Okay, so to form a stable structure or a 3D structure of a protein, there are few major covalent forces or bonds, namely ionic bond, hydrogen bond, van der Waals force of attraction, and hydrophobic bond. I think already you have dealt about these in chemistry, but still we will briefly see about it. So ionic bond, the best example is given between the sodium and chloride ions, where they form a salt bridge by exchanging the ions. So yeah, so ionic bond, it's there. And then when you see amino acids, we can give the example of lysine and arginine, which again forms a bridge, okay, to form an ionic bond. Then hydrogen bond, you can see the example here. So it's the hydrogen atom between the two electronegative atoms like nitrogen and oxygen. When they form the shared electron, they form an hydrogen bond, and it is the strongest bond. All right. Then you have van der Waals force of attraction, which is the weakest form, and as the image you can see here, it's very negligible. The distance is very negligible. It is like 1 by r to the power of 6. So what happens if the layer or the surface area is large, then they are most significant in holding the macromolecules. Otherwise, the attraction is very, very weak. Then the last type of interaction is hydrophobic. Best example what we can give right now is when you add oil in the water, what happens is it floats, right? So yes, hydrophobic interactions here. Here you can just see um, the lipids. The tail are at the center, and the external part, you have hydrophobic polar ends. Okay, so they are present at the core and not on the surface. So hydrophobic, fear of water, right? So this bond can also be seen in the protein, especially where you can see is the plasma membrane, which is a lipid bilayer, where the heads or the polar ends are at the surface and the tails are facing each other, internal or in at the core, at the center. So what is the importance of hydrophobic interaction? So hydrophobic interaction maintains the shape and structure of protein. Yes. Then it also maintains plasma membrane or any membrane. The structure is maintained by hydrophobic interactions. Then it also hold the protein together to make the structure like muscles. Okay, and like we said, the hydrophobic region is located at the core and not at the surface because it cannot interact with water. So with this, we end this session, and hope we will be. Hope you would not have any other doubts. If you have got doubts, please ping me on my WhatsApp. Let us sort this out. Okay. Thank you.